Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, The Swamp Thing, #1 from DC Comics, written by Rom V with artwork by Mike Perkins and coloring by Mike Spicer and lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Holy smokes, this was awesome. So Rom V, one of my favorite writers, by the way, Rom will be joining us here on the channel live 1 p.m. Central Time on Thursday afternoon. So Rom has worked with Swamp Thing before in the pages of Justice League Dark, in the pages of some Swamp Thing specials, and then most recently in DC Future State, right? He did the Swamp Thing book, him and Mike Perkins, and that was really well done. This, I feel, is even levels beyond that. This is a fantastic first issue, really getting into the horror roots of the character, introducing a new host for the Swamp Thing with a very compelling backstory and mystery about that backstory. The language used, the way the pacing is flown through, the elements of horror, the elements of throwback to previous Swamp Thing runs, but still defining its own path forward. Amazing. Perkins's artwork with Spicer's coloring is just beautiful and brilliant. It's gritty and gloomy. It's got this dirtiness to it, right? And it's very appropriate to the tone of the story. So you got one story going, and you got the introduction of this new character, and now they're going to start coming together. It just expertly well done. The Swamp Thing, #1, this is going to be a 10-issue series. And they say that if it does well, there will be more. And I hope there will be more after these 10 issues because this is awesome. A new character that was very compelling and very interesting story with great artwork, moody, atmospheric, top-notch from all creators involved. The Swamp Thing #1. And yes, that means Infinite Frontier is here from DC. So let's talk about DC's Infinite Frontier #0, an oversized one-shot special, though they did just announce that Infinite Frontier will be a 6-issue event going throughout the summer at DC, led by Joshua Williamson. So Josh Williamson does the framing story in here, but you got a bunch of different creators doing a bunch of different stories with a bunch of the different books. And it's one of those State of the Union type books that DC puts out every so often. So does Marvel as well. But it's getting you little bits of information about the direction of Brian Michael Bendis's Justice League, of Tynion's next wave of Batman stories, of Wonder Woman and what's set up there with Yara Flor. It's all here. It's all leading up, right? And so I thought it was well done. It's got this great framing story by Joshua Williamson that's Wonder Woman. She's now ascended to godhood, to divinity at the end of Death Metal. This explains what exactly Future State was. I think it did a great job of tying it all together, setting forth these new paths forward, giving us a little bit of a sneak peek at the direction of the books and just the universe itself. A promise, once again, for more interconnectedness of the main line of DC, and the promise for infinite possibilities as far as storytelling and usage of the characters go. And yes, Shazam is a real thing. Okay? Really liked this book, thought it was great. Well worth the $5.99 because there's a lot of pages there, and it will give you, it's worth the price alone, just because it will let you know what books and characters you're most excited for going forward. All right, so now we have all these Infinite Frontier books, and let's get into them. First, we got Batman 106. This is the return of James Tynion after, of course, all the Future State stuff, and Jorge Jimenez on the artwork with Tomu Mori doing, holy cow. Seriously, Maury must have heard us talking about the amazing coloring that Jordi Belair was doing on Dark Detective, because the coloring and the artwork on this book is freaking fire. Jimenez continues to just deliver better pages, better layouts, more dynamic action scenes, more interesting perspectives and camera angles. And he's just continuing to keep delivering it. This is him at the top of his game. The coloring is dope, and the story is really cool. You got this new dynamic. Batman has a new partner, but it's not a Robin. It's not a Batgirl. It's not someone like a mentor-mentee relationship. It's a friend, and he's kind of got this competitive kind of friendly nature with Ghostmaker, of course. That's an interesting dynamic. This is leaning very heavy into the magistrate stuff and doing a really cool job with it, and a reimagining of Scarecrow that makes it incredibly super effective. Absolutely. Then we got Suicide Squad #1. I was not looking forward to this one. The Suicide Squad Future State book, I wasn't really that into. This definitely does, just like the Batman stuff, lean into some of the ideas. Future State's basically possible futures, okay? And so some of these ideas of the Future State books are prevalent in their very beginning phases in these Infinite Frontier books. But they may not pan out that way, obviously. It's kind of explained in that Infinite Frontier one-shot. But the Suicide Squad was really good. The artwork in this book was amazing. I really liked Eduardo Pancia. I really liked the artwork in this book. I thought it had a nice, almost at times, Ivan Reis type vibe to it. Neil Adams, very big and boisterous. It was exciting. And one cool thing about these DC books this week is there is an interconnectedness to them. They feel connected. There are events that happen in Suicide Squad that are referenced in Batman that are also going on in Infinite Frontier, and it makes it feel rather cohesive. So there you go. I thought that was cool. Suicide Squad's interesting. It's this new form of the Suicide Squad. Amanda Waller's got this new plan. Rick Flag's maybe not down for it, but you got Peacemaker involved. They're going after Talon. This was really interesting. And I haven't really been that big of a fan of Suicide Squad for a while. I did like the Tom Taylor run, though. That was fantastic. But an all-new Suicide Squad, and the creative teams, Robbie Thompson's the writer, really actually going for it. And I enjoyed that a lot. Then we have Crime Syndicate #1. We're doing a Crime Syndicate #1, first issue of a 6-issue miniseries, because post-Death Metal, a lot of the previous worlds and realities, multiverses, are reforming. And they're reforming in slightly different ways. So this is Earth 3. This is where the Justice League is evil and Lex Luthor's the good guy. That's this world. It's a little bit different, some different characters and some familiar roles. But all in all, it's kind of the same idea of the story. It's got the evil version of the Earth 3 version of Starro, which I thought was pretty cool. But the book itself was pretty clunky. The artwork was clunky. It didn't really do much for me. I felt like it was one of the weaker interpretations of the Crime Syndicate of Earth 3. So I couldn't super recommend this one, but it is interesting to see these new realities reform in slightly different ways. Then we got a Sensational Wonder Woman #1. I believe this is going to be a mini-series with like just one-shot stories or something. This one's written by Stephanie Phillips, and it's okay. It doesn't do anything groundbreaking. It's a nice, simple Wonder Woman, Dr. Psycho story, but it's nothing that's going to be like, whoa, this is the best Wonder Woman book on shelves or something. You know, if it is, that would be sad, because this is just kind of run-of-the-mill, average, mediocre, work for hire type stuff. It's decent, it's okay, but it's nothing new and it's nothing super refreshing, but it is a new Wonder Woman #1, so if that's your bag, go for it. Then we got Man-Bat #2. Man-Bat's an interesting book because it feels late to the game, because it's set before Justice League Dark and before Death Metal, and it's telling us the story of how Man-Bat got to the state that he's in Justice League Dark, right? So it's been a really interesting story. The first issue blew me away. The second issue as well. Sumit Kumar on the artwork, fan-frickin-tastic, but the story's great too, with respect to everything that's come before and the build-up into what's come before, but technically after. Artwork's great. A great usage of the character. It's captivating. I'm intrigued by it. And like I said, Sumit Kumar's artwork on this was amazing. He was the artist, by the way, of These Savage Shores. Man-Bat is a perfect book for him. And in this issue, the main gist of the story is that the Suicide Squad, the OG Suicide Squad, or not the OG Suicide Squad, but the less OG, more not new OG, the one with Deadshot and Harley Quinn come after Man-Bat, and, fireworks ensue. Then we've got The Dreaming Waking Hours. This is issue #8 from DC Comics, Black Label, Sandman Universe. I've been really liking this Dreaming book, and I'm continuing to like it. I think it's wrapping up at issue 10 or something like that. We're now getting all these different elements that have been built up to the character arcs, all the pieces of the narrative and how they've been flowing. It's all starting to coalesce into one peak. All the factors are coming together, and I'm enjoying it. It's got a great flow. Nick Robles' artwork is absolutely just elegant and just masterful, and perfectly captures the essence of the dreaming and the characters associated with it, the dreaming and the imagination of Neil Gaiman. The Dreaming Waking Hours, issue #8, out this week. Real quick, let's go through some Marvel stuff. We got a new one. It's Demon Days X-Men. It's a one-shot, but it's going to be a series of one-shots. The next one's in June. But it's Peach Momoko writing and illustrating a story. Doesn't feel like it's set in 616. Obviously, it's definitely something else, but it's doing some it's using some Japanese folklore and stuff like that. And I actually really liked it. I thought the interpretation of Venom in this issue was pretty cool. I really liked the artwork with Peach Momoko. Some pieces I really like I love that cover right there. Then there's other covers where I'm like, that's okay. Right? But the interiors on this book were really striking, very well done. It's a Psylocke-oriented story that feels like a Kurosawa film, but in a much more imaginative and joyful type way. Peach Momoko, I think, did a really good job here. It's a complete story, but it does set up something to come, and I really dug it. So Demon Days, X-Men #1, I liked. America Chavez, Made in the USA, #1. It's the first part of a new 5-issue series, I think. America's one of those characters that, they've been trying miniseries here and there. The characters never really connected or resonated with me. I know that America connects with a lot of fans, and so that's cool, especially a lot of younger fans. So if you're a fan of the character, definitely check this out because it's revealing some things, I believe, about her past, her origins, her powers, and that's definitely the promise that's set up in the first issue. So I may continue reading this because it was a pretty well-done comic book. Nothing super grabbed me, but it was interesting enough, and I really liked the touch of West Coast Avengers in there. It's the Kate Bishop team from a few years ago. It's got a little bit of that kind of stuff in there, and I really appreciated that. So America Chavez, Made in the USA, #1, pretty solid. King of Black tie-ins. I didn't read them all. Let's whatever. There's one-shots. Captain America. King of Black, Captain America. It's written by Danny Lore. That's definitely why I wanted to check it out. I'm a big fan of their work. Queen of Bad Dreams is an amazing comic book. If you've never read it, you definitely should check it out. But this was an okay King of Black tie-in. It's Captain America, Falcon, Winter Soldier teaming up during the King of Black nonsense. But what I did like about it is dealing a little bit with Cap's feelings of unworthiness and violation post being taken over by Null. Right? So that was cool, but it doesn't do anything really for the main gist of the story. If you're into collecting all the tie-ins, by all means, this was one of the better ones, but it still didn't really do anything extraordinary. But I did like how it took that more psychological approach to what was going on with Cap, and it built out around there, and about that friendship with Bucky, Sam, and Steve. So King of Black, Captain America #1 was pretty decent. It was all right. Then you got King of Black, Wiccan, and Hulkling. As the King in Black tie-in's pretty weak. As the next chapter in the Wiccan and Hulkling saga, it was pretty solid. This is the honeymoon of Wiccan and Hulkling. So if you are a fan of these characters and you like to follow these characters, you definitely need to pick this up. But as far as the King of Black tie-in, it's a little bit there. They're in space. There's some Null-possessed people there. They gotta fight them. That's kind of it. But it's mostly about these characters and what they're going through and their journey. So it's the next chapter. And typically what they've done with these characters over the last decade and a half or so is they just they don't ever have their own book, like a Young Avengers book or a Wiccan book or something or a Hulkling book, but they wind up getting tied up into all of these events. You just follow their story through these events, and that's kind of what that is. King of Black Thunderbolts #3, this is the final issue. This has been a decent King of Black tie-in. Nothing super essential, but the artwork by Juan Ferreira is great. It's got a very goofy approach that Matthew Rosenberg is having with these characters, so it's got a little bit of fun to it. If you were bothered by Taskmaster being unmastering this entire time, I think it kind of redeems that here in issue #3. So it's an alright finale to an alright tie-in for King in Black. Then we got Avengers #43. So the big deal revelation at the end of last issue, that gets dealt with a little bit here. Plus, we're now getting to the very last people participating in this tournament for the host of the Phoenix or something. So you got Black Panther and Wolverine, and you've got Namor and a bunch of other people, and they're still fighting. And the idea is there's a tournament, there will be one victor, and that victor will be the host of the Phoenix. But then again, the Phoenix is revealing some things to Thor in this issue, and trying to... It's an alright issue, but I have been bored with the idea that, yes, the Phoenix yet again, but this actually was one of the better issues of the last several, in my opinion. So I can't crap on it too much. Plus, Blade's on 2 pages. I think he gets 2 or 3 panels, so that's something. It's better than nothing. Avengers 43. Then we have Avengers Mech Strike issue #2. I was really impressed with issue #1. My expectations were super low, but I found I enjoyed it immensely. So I read issue #2. My expectations had risen a little bit, and it kind of met my expectations. It's all right. It's not going to blow you away. It's another reason to create new designs for mechs to sell toys of. Sure, why not? You got to feed the machine. But Avengers Mech Strike it's okay. It's a decent, fun story. It's not trying to really overreach or do anything beyond what it's trying to do, which I think is making a new line of toys. But it has a nice appearance by one of my favorite Marvel villains in here with some cool ideas. So it's not trying to overreach, and I really appreciate it for that. So Avengers Mech Strike is out this week. Then we got Hellions number 10, another fantastic issue of Hellions. This is the only X book out this week that I'm aware of. An Arcade has kidnapped Mr. Sinister, and this book has been hilarious. This book has been serious. There are high stakes in this book. There are really interesting things done with, to me, historically uninteresting characters, and I really gotta credit Zeb Wells for that. It's got a nice free flow through it. Mr. Sinister, all that stuff in here is really funny. Arcade's in it, and it comes to a head. It comes to a peak. Hellions is one of the best X books out there. That's issue number 10. Let's jump over to Boom. And from Boom Studios, we have BRZRKR number 1 finally dropping. This book is written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent, with artwork by Ron Garney, Bill Crabtree rounding out that team. On the coloring, Clem Robbins actually rounding it out on the lettering. BRZRKR number 1 is finally here. This is a much anticipated book, like I said, co-written and created by Keanu Reeves, so everybody's anticipating this is the next big thing that they're going to try to turn into a movie or a TV series, obviously, right? So I've read it. Let me tell you what I thought about it. This book was awesome. This book is violence, right? This book is brutal, bloody, gory, hard violence, okay? BRZRKR, Keanu Reeves, I mean, it's obviously Keanu. Keanu is playing this character in this movie. He's very Wolverine-esque. So everybody that's ever thought and dreamcast Wolverine as Keanu Reeves, like, you're going to see what it could possibly be like, at least in comic book form. This book is violent. It's just a giant, brutal fight scene, right? But it's got this conversation that this character is having with, like a psychologist kind of going over it, that's providing the depth to the character and the concept on who the character is, and then all the everything that's going on in the book is giving you all the concept about the scientificness of what's going on. I don't really want to spoil too much. I don't know how much was in the solicitations, but I'll tell you this. If you like action comics, if you like gory, brutal, bloody action comics, you will not be disappointed. And if you like that with a little bit of tonal resonance and some nice character work and some really cool concepts, check it out. BRZRKR was great. It was really good. It's $4.99, but there's a lot to it, but there's a lot of action. Ron Garney's artwork is freaking fantastic. The coloring is dope. The flow, the pacing, Matt Kent knows how to make a comic book, right? And so I was really excited when Keanu Reeves was attached to this project with him. BRZRKR, I really liked. Issue number 1 from Boom Studios, I thought was hella badass. And I cannot wait to see Keanu Reeves do that on screen. For real. From Image Comics, we have Nocterra, number 1. This was a Kickstarter as well as BRZRKR. 2 Kickstarters. You're finally seeing life on the comic book shelves. This is written by Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel on the artwork there. Tomo Mori on the coloring. Really like this book. It's got an interesting concept. The concept is that one day, the sun just goes out. Okay? The sun just goes out. And you find that any biological life or material starts becoming affected with not having any sun, any solar radiation after a few days. So this is years later in a world of complete darkness, and everything, like the plant life and all the animals, they've turned into these like gnarly mutant monsters. And so have some humans. And then the humans have to keep these lights on them, and they have to like do all kinds of preventative measures to make sure that they don't start turning into these creatures affected by the night or whatever. And it was really intriguing. So you got a really cool concept, and that's what Scott Snyder's been doing. He's got some great world building here. But you also have some really nice character work. And that's something I find lacking in Undiscovered Country, for instance, which is co-written by Scott Schneider. And I I think in that one there's just not a lot of character work, nothing to really grab me or compel me. The main character in this one, I completely get the character story, I completely get the motivations, and I'm very intrigued and I'm invested in the concept, in the character, and in the artwork. This is the best artwork I've ever seen from Tony Daniel. You can definitely tell that Daniel's got some time. Plus, he's got Maury coloring them, doing a fantastic frickin' job. It looks very well thought out and well rendered, very sleek, very cool. Not a lot of shortcuts taken. This had a lot of fun action, some great sci-fi concepts, and some really great character work. I was overly impressed with Nocterra #1 from Scott Snyder, Tony Daniel, and company, and Image Comics. Speaking of Image Comics, we got Firepower #9, another just slam bang fantastic issue of Firepower. Speaking of highly charged kinetic action in a comic book, Chris Samney knows how to do it, and he does it again. Like, the whole first half of this book is an action scene with the main character falling out of a plane, but it is still so dynamic, so high in intensity, and you feel it. And then some revelations, some interesting, funny little jokes, and then some nice, poignant scenes between characters. Robert Kirkman's pulling out all the stops here, writing a really captivating action story with neat kung fu mystery, and great characterizations, and just balancing it all so freaking well. Plus Chris Samney and Matt Wilson. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that in Action Comics. There's some great action in comics this week. Then we got the return of Undone by Blood, this time in a book called Undone by Blood, or The Other Side of Eden. This is a completely different story from the original. So the original was about this young lady on a mission of revenge, right? Like, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s or something like that. But she's reading this book of this old Western character, this pulpy thing, and the characters are the stories are kind of both being told, and they're juxtapositioning against each other. That's what they're doing here. But this story is set like in the 30s. Pretty sure it's the 30s, yeah, 1934, and it seems to be a Mexican immigrant who is a postal worker who has this plan to pull off a heist. And then you have the other story, which is the same character from the other story, the pulp story in the first volume, and it's a heist type story across the border in Mexico. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition there that they're doing. It's the exact same creative team. You got Lonnie Nadler, Zach Thompson, Sammy Cavella, Jason Wordie, Hassan Otzman, El Howe. Holy cow, an all-star team producing all-star work. I really liked it. It's not the same character. It's not picking up on that same story from the original, but I like how it is connected through the Solomon, what is his name? Solomon what? Solomon something, but his stories, really like that. Undone by Blood or The Other Side of Eden, #1. Fantastic. If you like the original, you're going to love that. From AWA Upshot, we have Chariot. Chariot #1 is written by Brian Edward Hill. Very excited for this. The artwork is Priscilla Patriotes and Marco Lesko. Probably messed up those names, and I'm very sorry. This is another book that's got some great action scenes. Now, Brian Hill is really into that synthwave 80s aesthetic action movies with nuance and, sexy women, fast cars, badass dudes, shit like that. And he does a great job of that here in Chariot. That aesthetic is so prevalent. But it's about this car, this mysterious car that is really badass. It's like Kit from Knight Rider, but sexier, right? And it's about this dude who's kind of down on his luck. He's trying to do the right thing for his kid. He owes a lot of bad people, money, and you don't want to be in that situation. And he comes across this car, and I really, really like the setup. I really like the story, really like the action, the flow, the whole aesthetic. I'm going to reread this probably as soon as I'm done listening to some synthwave. Seriously, Chariot #1 from AWA was dope. So was Casual Fling, issue #2. AWA Upshot again. I was really impressed with the first issue of this. It's written by Jason Starr, artwork by Talibor Talajic, and Marco Lesko involved in this one as well. And on first issue, I said it was the absolute best and the best episode of Red Shoe Diaries ever written. And it is. Now, it's not some kind of uber sexy thing. It's got elements, but it's not a TNA. That's not what it is. I don't even think there's been any nudity in this book. That's not what it's about. But it's about this woman who has a one-night stand. Now, she's married with kids. She hit a point in her life. She's stressed. She's overworked. And she had a one-night stand, and she thought it was it. And then all of a sudden, now dude's being kind of crazy and stalking her. So now everything starts to unspiral. And this book, in a non-moralizing way, but we'll see what happens, really does a great job of just making you feel for this character, for her plight, understanding her mistake, like kind of going along with it, and then feeling this terror, this tension that arises when this dude just won't leave her alone. Really great issue, casual fling. Number 2, the artwork was solid, the way it's paced, the way it's told, very impressed. We have The Plot, number 8. This is from Vault Comics. This is the final issue of The Plot. That sucks. But what doesn't suck is this issue. An amazing finale that now we completely get the gist of what this story has been about. What this story is saying about regret, about family, about loneliness, about desperation, about greed, about shame, right? This book is saying so much with the subtext, and the main story has just been so captivating, so intriguing. It leads itself to an emotional ending, to a high-pitched ending that I absolutely loved. I think Michael Morisi and Tim Daniel blew this book away, knocked it out of the park. The artwork by Joshua Hickson has been amazing. We have Kurt Michael Russell. I don't want to get anybody confused. Kurt Michael Russell doing the coloring in the second half of the story, and I really have liked this book. It's been one of the best horror books on shelves, and it has a very fantastic ending that I just love. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think about it. Resonant number 8 is here. Loved this issue. I don't know how he does it, but David Andry is able to introduce, even though we know this book is wrapping up around 10, it could go more, so hopefully you can support this book. But issue number 8, just going into a different direction, something I didn't expect, adding new characters, new elements, new ideas, really doing a great job with it too. And Skylar Patridge, Skylar's artwork is getting better and better each issue. She is an incredibly talented artist, but Resonant has a certain feel and grit and edge that it has to have, and it is pitch perfect in Resonant. Like Jason Wordy and Darren Bennett and Skylar, they do such an amazing job of realizing this in a very real and visceral way. I love this book. This book is plodding along at a great pace. The characters are hitting all their moments at the right time. Just very well done. Resonant number 8, super solid. And the dog gets to shine in that issue. We have Engine Ward issue number 8. Really, things are really starting to heat up in Engine Ward. I have accused this book of being a little bit of a slow burn, a little bit of a slow build, but it was giving us all the information while it was building. And now that we have all the information and all the pieces are set, it's starting to move rather briskly. So I'm really liking Engine Ward, the complexity of what is actually going on with the characters, with the plots around it. Everything's mixing back up together, and I'm really liking it. Engine Ward number 8, this book is going to go to 12, so that's pretty much the end of Act 2, if you want to look at it that way, maybe. And it hits a crescendo, I'll tell you that. From Dark Horse, we have Dead Dog's Bite number 1. This is by Tyler Boss. I was very intrigued by this book. It's basically about this young woman who her friend has been missing, right? And so the police aren't able to really do much about it, and she's starting to try to figure it out on her own. The way the story is told is kind of almost in a very Twilight Zone way. There's even like a narrator that pops up. But the artwork is well done. The story at times felt a bit confusing. It just didn't feel like it had a very appropriate flow as far as the narrative of the story goes and some of the dialogue. It has some really great usage of language. It has amazing artwork, great lettering. It's got a tone about it that really kind of works, but there's something about the book that just didn't quite click or connect fully with me. So it was good and it was solid, but I feel like this could have been better. But I am excited and intrigued, I should say, about what's going to happen in the pages of Dead Dog's Bite. Really like the artwork there. There's some intriguing mystery as well. Fear Case number 2 is here. I loved this issue of Fear Case. It was a great setup. It's this idea that the Secret Service has been tracking this mysterious object since its inception. And it's something that goes in pretty much back to prehistory. It's this black box. And if you receive the black box, you get the instructions. Give it away to someone that you hate, the person you hate the most, within 3 days, or it's going to wind up in the hands of your loved ones. And by the way, if you don't fulfill that, or you open it up or something terrible is going to happen to you. And it's about these 2 agents who are, so each new, in the Secret Service, every new recruits, they have 1 year to work on this case because it's the unsolvable case. A lot of people write it off as urban legend, right? But this is about like the last couple weeks that these two partners have to solve this mystery, and they're getting rather close to it. And one of them is starting to kind of lose it, and the other one's a little bit, more like, yo, let's calm down. But the chase is real. The artwork is so stylistically appropriate for this book. It's got this slight unnervingness of madness just lurking behind the line work sometimes. The coloring, the way it just feels like it really helps build it up. So you could have a more action-packed, visual representation of the story that would make it seem more dynamic that way, but it's being so dynamic on a more subconscious level because of the artwork. It's not going to be to everybody's taste, but I absolutely love it. Fear Case number 2 blew me away. We have Jonah and the Impossible Monsters number 1. This is from Oni Press. This is done by Chris Samney. Chris Samney and Laura Samney. Now, Laura Samney, I don't know if that's one of his daughters or if it's his wife. I think it's his wife, but they were making it for their daughter. So this is Chris Samney doing an all-ages comic book, and it was really cool. So Jonah is this young lady, and they live in this world of monsters, and she's running around, and she's like fighting monsters, and she disappears. And now it's about her sister out there on the hunt. This book, the whole first half, just mostly silent pages, big action for an all-ages book. It's what Chris Samney will do. And then some story, and then it's not a lot that gets set up in the first issue. I think this probably read better in a graphic novel format because of that, but I really did like it, and I thought, once again, just a master lesson in how to propel a story forward and show motion and movement in a comic book by Chris Samney. Jonah and the Impossible Monsters, definitely something worth checking out for your all-ages comic book fans in your household. James Bond, Agent of Spectre number 1. I've been falling out of the James Bond books for a while, but I decided to check this one out. It's an issue number 1 because it was written by Christos Gage and artwork by Luca Casalanguida. Sorry. Really liked it, though. Thought the artwork was great. Once again, a different style from Luca that's very appropriate to a Bond book. I like how they are connecting it to this Dynamite Bond universe that's more in tune and in key with the books. I've never read the James Bond book, so I don't know if this Blofeld is like the Blofeld in the books, but like this is not the Blofeld I know. Donald Pleasance, he ain't. You know what I'm saying? But I really liked it. I thought it was pretty cool and just an interesting, fun, action-oriented Bond story. Once again, some great action in comics this week. We got Transformers Beast Wars issue number 2. I've never watched Beast Wars, and I read the first issue, and I freaking loved it. Second issue didn't do it for me as much as the first issue, but it was still intriguing. The concepts kind of got muddied up just a little bit, but it still was intriguing and captivating enough for me that makes me just maybe want to stick this whole thing out. But I really like the artwork. I really like the simplicity of it, but I also like the complexity of the story and what's going on as well. Transformers Beast Wars number 2 is out this week. Then we have The Eighth Immortal number 2 from Source Point Press. I was really impressed with issue number 1 of this, especially the artwork. I still like the artwork. The art is by Alice Lee Barnes. But the story I'm starting to get, it was losing me. Now, maybe I need to sit down and reread 1 and 2 because there was something still captivating about this book to me, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me as I was reading it, so I'm not casting any judgment based on that. But I think I need to sit down, reread 1, and then 2, and then see how it irons out. Because I remember the gist of the story. There can only be 7 immortals or 8 or something, but I was lost in this one. But there was still some really unnerving, unsettling, and intriguing concepts that were brought about. And like I said, I really liked the artwork. So there you go. The Eighth Immortal, issue number 2. And finally, let's talk about Dead End Kids, The Suburban Job, number 2. Any comparison that we would have to this, to A Simple Plan, is completely pretty much confirmed in this. It's basically your simple story of these 3 kids, and what Frank Gogol has done that's so amazing in this book is he's taken a very familiar concept. People find a bag of money, they don't know what to do, and they're trying to figure it out. But obviously a bag of money is attached to some bad people, and it's going to spiral out of control. What's intriguing is that in just 2 issues, he has built up these characters to such a level where they're not only relatable, and not only understandable, but like you are the characters. Do you get what I'm saying? You understand their motivations and exactly why they're doing what they're doing, and it's because of the very deliberate and purposeful build-up in a very non-invasive way. Like, meaning that it's just not a bunch of exposition, but like the way that information is delivered in Dead End Kids through the script is magnificent. 100%. The artwork is really solid in the book too. It's got a clean, simple style by Nanad. I shouldn't even try to say that name. Syndicate. I messed it up so bad. Anyway, I'm really liking it. The dialogue is sharp. It's spot on. The timing, the everything about it is just really cool. And what could just be written off as it's a simple plan. I've seen that. No, it's got its own identity. It's based on these characters. It's got amazing character work, great dialogue, a great pace and flow. And it's got this bittersweet melancholy tinge to it that really captures the emotions of the characters involved. Let's just say that. Dead End Kids, The Suburban Job #2, really liked it. So that's what I read this week. That's what I thought about it. Really liked Nocterra. Really liked Berserker. I think DC had a super strong week. I love how connected those books felt. But Swamp Thing was it. Yo, I loved it. I thought this book was amazing. It was definitely the pick of the week. When you read it, let me know what you think about it. And let me know, what are you excited for? What's your pick of the week? What books get your juices flowing? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading.